Hey dudes, Khraze here and welcome back to our second episode of our weekly Marvel's Avengers news roundup. If you're new here, this is a series where we will cover all of the biggest news on Marvel's Avengers for the week prior to that, and of course the most important info on upcoming content. And there's definitely quite a lot in today's video. We had a new update this week, a really neat way to almost guaranteed get exotic gear, and finally we have some news from Crystal Dynamics on another big upcoming patch that, yes, will include some new content. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And guys, if you really enjoyed this series, there's no better way of letting me know than hitting that like button. So make sure to do that and let's jump right into it. Alright, so let's get started with a few highlights for this past week. So we had a new patch that went live on Thursday. This was patch 1.3.2 or 1.10 if you're on the PS4. It basically only lists one fix, which is the fact that it prevents a rare issue that could cause some players to lose progression, which is a bug that has been affecting a lot of players, including yours truly. This is of course following last week's updates 1.30 and 1.31 that both added over 1,000 bug fixes between each other, and there's likely a lot more that still need fixing. Now admittedly, it's not all going to be bad, and fortunately enough we do have some pretty great news coming our way. It seems that despite Crystal Dynamics' silence for the past week, they recently came in and reassured everybody that the reason for that isn't because of them ignoring the issues or the players, but rather because everybody at the studio is busy at work for a new upcoming content update. Meanwhile, this week's official Wordtable blog post also confirmed that the patch is already in testing. It's going to address some of the ongoing bugs as well as introducing new content and requested features. Now on the content side, we kind of know what to expect already. On the Shield Substation Zero, the story update that we've talked about so many times in the past, it's also been teased a couple of times this week by the main account over on Twitter, so I think that this is going to be a pretty much 99% confirmation that this is going to be the next one coming up. And of course we also have the Hawkeye update sometimes after that. According to the last piece of info that we have on the Hawkeye update, that is supposed to release sometimes in late October, and I'm fully expecting this to release in the very last week of this month, maybe even in the last few days, as this is usually what happens in these types of situations. So basically what I mean by that is that if we're not going to see the Shield Substation Zero update, which predates the Hawkeye update, within the next 10 days, give or take a few days, it's likely that everything is going to get pushed by at least a few days later down the line, maybe even the whole content for 2020. Now luckily enough, the track record for Crystal Dynamics when it comes to releasing these types of bigger updates is kinda good so far. They released 1.30 on a weekend, that is true, but it was only like a couple of days after the initial release date that we initially thought, and it was still within the week that they have already mentioned prior to that. So at the very least, when it comes to big updates, they seem to have things under control, and I'm pretty sure that they will continue to have it at least for the foreseeable future, or at least for the month of October. But going back at some of the present matters, let's talk about some of the weekly challenges that we have, and I kind of want to talk about that mega hype that we have for this week. Of course, it's another update, another week, another chance at getting some exotic gear. And in the beginning of the video, if you remembered, I said that I will show you a method to almost always guaranteed get exotic gear, and well, unfortunately it is going to involve the mega hives. Fortunately enough, it's going to involve a really easy cheesy method to only repeat it for the very last challenge track. So 8 out of 8, the last one in the sequence over there that you need to complete before you fully finish the challenge for that week. So basically this method is really easy. You can redo the last part, which is the 8th one in the sequence of the mega hive, over and over again until you get the rewards that you need. But there's something that you need to do prior to that. So all you have to do first is to complete all of the 7 parts until you reach the 8th and the last one. Don't enter it yet, don't do anything. First go ahead and do a hard copy of your save files, as in back up your save files on a different drive. If you're on the PC, maybe copy it over on D or in another location. If you're on the console, copy it over an USB stick drive. After that, you can go ahead and complete the mega hive and see what what you get. If you don't like what you get, like for example maybe you get some really bad legendaries or some really bad stuff that you don't really need, now you can bring back those save files that you had on that USB drive and carry them over back into your game, and now your game is going to put you in that state where you had only the 8th mega hive still standing, so you can go ahead and repeat it. And yes, I can confirm that 100% still works. So you can go ahead, do this as many times as you want to. It is a bug, I know, but it's a pretty cool and cheesy one that you might want to do, since there's quite a bit of RNG in this game anyway, and it's likely that eventually we will have this fixed anyway. Let me know down below, by the way, if you got anything cool from the Mega Hive this week. Now in the meantime, let's also talk about the general state of the game, some of the stuff that it comes in as form of a suggestion from the fan base when it comes to some of the changes that the game could see, and of course it also seems that the company isn't fully tone deaf to everything that is wrong with the game, especially so since they very recently sent over this survey to a lot of players. So I suggest go ahead and check out your emails, as you might have received one of these surveys right here that are well, progression and loot related. So this is basically the best time right now to make your voices heard, to let know Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix that the loot and the progression in this game aren't in a good state, that there's a lot of stuff that needs fixing, and there's a lot of stuff that should be revamped in a future content update. This is not something that usually companies do, and especially so not that specific. Like, it seems that they're fully aware that this is a major point of concern, and there's a lot of really awesome fan suggestion coming from the fan base, of course, a lot of players coming in with some really good feedback that if the developers only listen to it, they would definitely make the game a whole lot better. So there's a few ones that I kind of want to also point out in this video. Of course, loot and progression being the most important. High-end tier just doesn't feel high-end enough, despite some of the recent changes to make those exotics feel better than the lower tiers. Maybe they need to make them more unique, but more important in my opinion should be that we should have better dedicated ways that don't require that much grind and aren't that repetitive to get some proper gear. Yes, so far you can get some pretty decent gear, but it's through some really meaningless and really repetitive kind of content. And this also brings me to the RNG side of things. There's a bit too much RNG in this game. It's not as bad as it could be. Like, at least we can get legendaries at a relatively nice pace. Like, I think we can all agree that getting legendaries is relatively easy in this game. It's just that you constantly have to grind them through the same repetitive content over and over again, and at the end of them you might just end up being disappointed by the rolls because, well, it's just frustrating that you cannot progress your character at a steady and reliable pace. And of course we also have some cash shop related, let's just say, complaints, but also suggestions. Like, there's a few items in there and prices that are kind of nonsensical. So skipping on the fact that the cosmetic shop in the game that you use units to buy from is kind of, well, redundant, since it didn't change almost anything substantial for at least 4 weeks at this point. I mean, there's no costume in there that you're going to want to buy. I'm pretty sure that in the recent update only now they started to actually add something new, but otherwise there's not much to buy from there. This also brings me to the takedowns. This is something that is a bit too costly in many people's opinions for $10. They at the very least should reduce that price, or maybe even think about introducing a way of purchasing these using straight out units, you know, the ones that we already kind of earn in game. Yes, we lost quite a number of these, but I kind of got a chance to go back at remaking almost my entire sum that Crystal Dynamics, or well, Square Enix, has yet to fully refund me, and I lost quite a bit of it. By the way guys, a small update, I just realized this after actually making the video. They have recently issued refunds for the units that we just got, so you might want to go ahead and check out your bank accounts and see how much you got. It might be that they are doing this in batches so that many other players are also getting this. I kind of lost about 35,000 units, and now I'm back to like 51 with the 20 that I earned on top, so that should kind of compensate for everything. And this is kind of like it with everything that's been happening through this week. Of course, as always, let me know down below what other major points of concern do you have regarding the game, regarding the recent updates, and what else would you like to see happening in the game. And on the same note, also go ahead and do that survey, since that is your best chance at, again, making your voices heard. In the meantime, as always, I'm going to keep you guys updated when new content updates and news is happening in Marvel's Avengers. In the meantime, meantime, as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So peace out, everybody.